right, let's get into today's top science stories with CTV science and technology expert Dan Riskin. We're looking at some of the beautiful forest country, likely, I'm guessing, the west coast of Canada in this B-roll here. But Dan, there's a big issue when it comes to deforestation. And CP26, they've been discussing that. More than 100 countries have agreed to end deforestation by 2030. And you know, when you hear 2030, some people might think 2030, that's not that far away now.
Yeah, and they're right. It's not that far away. This is a big deal. This is $19 billion from all the rich countries going to countries with less money but bigger forests. So you take places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Indonesia, Brazil. These are places that hold the lungs of our planet, but we're all sort of helpless on the sidelines as those countries make policies about what they want to do with their own land. They have autonomy, of course. And so here you have economic pressure, the dollar speaking. Canada has pitched in, a whole bunch of countries saying, look, we're going to, countries and private industry as well, actually, giving $19 billion to those countries to leave their forests intact, to make it viable for them so they're not forced to take an economic hit by losing out on all the money they would make by turning that land to agriculture, for example. And so for countries like Brazil, you know, that's where biodiversity is so high, and we all want that biodiversity to persist, and we also want all the benefits of those forests pulling carbon dioxide out of the air. And so hopefully this big announcement from CP26 will point us in the right direction, and we might see them follow through on this promise of no deforestation by the end of this decade. Yeah,
a big promise indeed, with a big price tag, as you mentioned, but very crucial for sure. All right, another story, perhaps a little more amusing or smile-inducing, is you're answering the question of why dogs tilt their heads.
Yes, and you did that so well, which makes me think you're a very good dog, Nick. But
yes.
This is a study where they had 40 dogs, and they weren't trying to study the head tilting thing, but it just happened. They were studying 40 dogs, and they were doing a thing where they trained the dogs to do a very difficult task, where you tell the dog, go in the other room, get the rope, and come back. And so the dog has to go in the other room, know which object is the rope, and bring it back, or the stuffy, or whatever object it's asked to go get on that instance. Out of 40 dogs, only 7 of them were smart enough to be able to do this. They all happen to be border collies, by the way, which tells you something about border collies. But what's cool is that when they looked at the performance of these animals, those dogs that could figure it out, those small minority, 7 out of 40 dogs, when they were asked to go get something, 46% of the time they tilted their head and looked at their master with that little funny look before they went and got it. And the dogs that couldn't figure it out didn't do the head tilt. Only 2% of trials had that. So what scientists are saying is that it may be that when a dog does this, it's trying to figure out what you're thinking. It's trying to figure out what's going on inside your head to understand what you're communicating to it. And there may be other reasons they do it, and maybe not all dogs that do it are the smart dogs. But if your dog's doing that to you, you can give a little pat on the head and say, oh, you're such a smart dog. And they're all smart dogs. They're all great.
All right. Hey, good job, Fido. You tilted your head as you heard my voice. All right, Dan, we always appreciate our conversations with you, and we try to understand it as well. Thanks so much. Great to chat with you. We'll talk to you soon.
It's time for me to stop going by karma. It's time for me to be Carrie. Dinner time! Okay, Mom. Hello, soon-to-be investors.
Who?
Today I'm here to present to you the latest invention from Keys Grant Enterprises.
Well, Ludacris has conquered the music scene, landing multiple Grammys and awards, but his new project hits closer to home, a children's series teaching positivity through the eyes of his daughter, Karma. Chris Ludacris Bridges, thanks for joining us here on CP24 Breakfast this morning. This is quite a remarkable situation. You've got one of the top trending kids shows on Netflix right now, and your daughter is the inspiration. How did you get here? How did this all come about?
Absolutely, man. It's been a long time coming, man. It's been over a decade, to be exact. But it all came about because my daughter, she used to barge into my studio and say she wanted to rap, and she wanted to rap like Daddy. And I told her if she wanted to do music, she has to talk about what goes on in her life and her world. And obviously that was about learning morals and education and all the things that deal with a young daughter, just a young girl. And I felt like we came up with all these different songs and ideas. It started as a website. And then over a decade later, we are now here, man. And it's like you said, it's trending worldwide because I want young people to know that they're not alone in things that they deal with when it comes to self-confidence issues and just pressure that's going on, body sensitivity. We deal with all things that she went through in her life, which makes it even more special because art imitates life, and Karma's World on Netflix is blowing up right now. So I had to let everybody in Canada know for sure.
And Chris, it's fascinating, isn't it, as a parent? I have 2 daughters and a son too, and you watch them and you see what happens to them as they're growing up, and then you sort of try to figure out and translate how that sort of you interpret it in your world and in the way you grew up as well, because so much has changed from their childhood, from our childhood to theirs. I mean, the issues they're dealing with now, they are so serious, and they appear to me at least to be happening at a much younger age.
Exactly. And so I wanted to be the change I want to see in the world, and that's exactly what we're doing with this show. I mean, you'd be amazed at some of the subjects that we tackle and some of the things that are going on. So if you can imagine, it took over a decade for this to happen, and the timing couldn't be more perfect for everyone's eyes to focus on this right now. And like I said, I'm looking at social media everywhere. I see how it's affecting. It's been overwhelming response. So we love all of the positivity and all the love.
What's the reaction been amongst your family, putting your daughter up there, your name out there, and tying it all into these really important issues? It's something that it must feel pretty special.
It does feel special. The only problem is that I have 3 other daughters, and now they're looking at the show like, where are their names and where are their shows? So I'm having some problems in my household right now, man, because because it's called Karma's World, so it's named after my oldest daughter. So now the other daughters want their show as well. So I got to figure that out. Maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, no kidding. It sounds like you're going to have a sort of production company run out of your house, I would assume here. I got to ask you, Chris, before I let you go here, you were ahead of Game 1 of the World Series. Your team won the World Series. How did that make you feel, and how are you feeling now, just looking back at that season? Because they weren't the best team in the playoffs, but they ultimately
They
won.
were not. I mean, listen, I was very happy, to say the least. It's been since 1995 that we won a championship. But even happier to be able to be the poster boy when it comes to all things Atlanta sports, and being able to perform at the Braves parade and the championship meant even more to me. So we made history, and it took a long time. But to answer your question, yes, I was very happy about that because, like you said, we weren't the best in the season, but we pulled it through.
I can only imagine. Okay, before I let you go, let's give a shout out to your other daughters who don't have a show named after them just yet. What are their names, Ludacris?
Their names are Kai, Cadence, and Chance, man. But I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for helping me out in my household, man.
Listen, hey, anytime, Ludacris, just give us a call. Listen, Karma's World looks great. I'm going to get my kids watching that for sure. And it was thanks for being in here today and sort of helping us understand a little more about it. It looks like a great project here. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Shout out to Nine Story.
Thanks so much.
All love.
The silver anniversary of Toronto's Real Asian International Film Festival runs tonight through the 19th. This year's Canadian Spotlight is squarely focused on the 3-decade artistic and academic career of filmmaker and educator Ali Kazemi, who joins me now to parse the past, the prologue, and the power of film. Good morning, Ali. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Take us back first, if you can, to the early 80s when you emigrated to Toronto from India as a 20-something student. So why Canada? And was film always your calling and your vocation, or did it kind of choose you?
Film chose me. I was a self-taught photographer. I joined a film school that had been set up by York University in New Delhi. And then I came here on a 1-year exchange program. And then I got the offer to continue my studies at York, which has a fantastic film program. And that's where I graduated from.
You know, you've received so many awards over the years and accolades. I couldn't mention them all. It would take forever. What does hometown recognition from this homegrown Asian Film Festival mean to you, Ali?
It means a lot. I'm deeply honored. I've been engaged with the festival since it started 25 years ago, and particularly on the 25th anniversary, it feels extremely special. I'm deeply honored.
Exposure to popular Asian art, culture, literature, cinema has just grown leaps and bounds here in the West over the last decade or so. Did you see it coming, and do you think it can sustain itself?
Well, we hope that it would come. We hope that this interest would rise in diversity, both in front of and behind the camera. And I hope that it does sustain itself. All the signs are there that it will sustain itself, yes.
These days, where do you get your most pleasure? From creating the work, making the films, or sharing your knowledge and your experience with the next gen?
Both, actually. I continue being a filmmaker, which I'm deeply passionate about. and I love teaching the next generation. It's my students keep me excited, engaged, and I teach in the very program that I came to study at York University. And our students are really incredibly talented and very motivated.
And talk
so
about
that's fun.
Completing the creative circle. That's pretty impressive. You know, your films, your visual arts, your written works, they cover such sweeping, enigmatic subject matter, really, you know, getting to the core of the human condition. They say that art, at its best, provokes, it tests your assumptions, it begs questions, not necessarily providing all the answers in conclusion. But there's also an old saying that great artists suffer for their art. Have you suffered to create your work?
I did. I did initially. It's very tough being a documentary filmmaker anywhere. And when I started in the early '80s, it was very tough. I found myself often living in leading a very frugal lifestyle, but was determined to see my films finished, and so that came at a cost. And then after 20 years of struggling as a documentary filmmaker, I decided I would give back to the next generation, and that's when I joined York.
Well, Ali Kazemi, we'd like to thank you for giving us some time here on CP24 Breakfast. Your work speaks for itself. Congratulations on getting this honor as the Canadian Artist Spotlight at this year's Real Asian International Film Festival. Again, congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Master Corporal Margaret Anthony with the Toronto Scottish Regiment. It is so great to have you aboard here, Margaret Anthony. Thanks for joining us. I wonder where your head is, where your heart is on this Remembrance Day morning.
Morning, Nick. Thanks for having me. It's been a really difficult day to remember all my comrades over the past 17 years who I've served with. And in addition to that, you know, we come together and wear the poppy so we can remember those who've served before us. So the Great War ended, World War II, and those who've served who are no longer here with us. For example, in the regiment, we lost a couple of our soldiers, Mark Wilson and Will Furtis, and even people here in the community who grew up and lived here in Toronto. So it's a really important day to honor those people who served and their memory. So I'll be out today at Old City Hall to celebrate and remember those who I've served with. I sent a couple pictures off to share. I don't know if you have those, but it's important to me to remember, for example, Betty Mobili, who served as a medic alongside with me in Afghanistan, who's no longer here. She passed in 2017. And, you know, these are the faces now of the veterans who have served in war, who have, you know, decided to fight for our country. And even though they're not here with us today, we'll remember them.
And Margaret, it's so important because I think, you know, so much of Remembrance Day, you know, we were reflecting on this earlier in the program. You know, we were talking about, you know, World War I, World War II. We all remember, you know, those are in the history books, but it's the recent history. It's the Afghanistan, you know, war. The veterans like yourselves who fought in Afghanistan for Canada. You know, more than 158 Canadians, of course, dying over there. You know, I wonder when you think back, you know, those pictures you shared. Those are very special pictures. I'm assuming you must also be going back to some of the awful ramp ceremonies that you probably took part in while you were in Afghanistan. I wonder if you can help give our viewers a sense of the emotion that's felt when you're literally on the battlefield saying goodbye to your comrades.
That's just it. You think you live forever and you're young and you serve and you do your duty, but it's a horrible feeling knowing to lose your comrades, no matter whether in war or just serving in general. I'm a reservist. I work with the Toronto Scottish Regiment, and everyone was deeply moved when we lost our fellow comrades. And so this is a time to reflect and remember those who've passed and those who are no longer with us. You know, they paid the ultimate sacrifice for serving for our country in Afghanistan, and it was a recent war. And I'm sure many of us have a lot of emotions that are going through and feelings about what's happening at the current moment. But it's really a time to reflect on those who aren't with us and made the sacrifices they did, so this way we can be free today.
And what's it like to be a reservist? You know, that means you have a life outside of the military. You know, you have another job. You go about your day-to-day lives, but you're a reservist. That means you commit some time, of course, to sort of maintaining your training and your commitment to the military as well. Can you talk a little bit about that balance in your life and how you manage that? Because that's something so different. It's an anathema to so many people, really.
It's a commitment, right? And it's really the team and the people that make it amazing. And that's why you keep coming out, because we're like a giant family. So for many of us, it's very hard because if you have families and kids, you have to have a support network. And that support network is, you know, your wife or your husband and your family. And because of those people that we're able to go away for Operation Laser, you know, that was the Canadian Armed Forces response to COVID-19 last year. And, you know, many of these people don't get to be with their children. So it's a hard sacrifice for a lot of those mothers and fathers who can't be around for 4 months to a year, depending on what their deployment is. Yeah. So it is a balance. It is hard, and it does put stress on the family. But everybody is very much a positive support in those social circles, and there is support for those people who need it.
Yeah, there's so much support that's necessary. And listen, thank you so much for your time, Master Corporal Margaret Anthony. We really appreciate your sacrifice, your commitment to the country, and of course your dedication here. And thanks for sharing some of those memories and those pictures as well here on CP24 Breakfast. Do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Well, Remembrance Day ceremonies have wrapped up here, but there is a pretty significant gun salute happening in the UK come Monday. And the King's Troop has played a pivotal role in many milestones for the royal family, providing gun salutes for joyous occasions to accompany the deceased in somber ones. Well, now a young Canadian has become the first ever non-British member of this highly esteemed group. Master Bombardier Haley Vanderpost joins us now live on the phone from across the pond. Haley, it's great to have you here on CP24 Breakfast. Can we talk? I'm sure you don't really like talking too much about yourself, but what you've achieved in this group you're part of. Can you give us a sense of what you're doing and what you do?
Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's great to have a chat with you. So what I've done over here with the King's Troop, I have come over and essentially integrated with them fully to learn how they operate as a regiment here in the United Kingdom. And I've had a great opportunity to learn all about how they utilize their horses and their gun equipment to honor the royal family and the Queen herself with all their salutes that they conduct here in the United Kingdom. Yeah,
and the first non-Brit to be a part of this. Tell our audience, you know, where you come from, what regiment you represent here in Canada, and the significance of being part of this and the history you're making.
Yes, of course. So I come from Brantford, Ontario, and I'm from the 56th Field Regiment, that's by Fort Battery. And I have, so I've got essential experience with horseback riding throughout my life, and I've integrated that a bit into the military as we've incorporated a mascot into the regiment, which is a Clydesdale horse, who we have essentially kind of gotten into a similar role that the King's Troop uses their horses for, and we've managed to kind of make ties together so that we could learn and grow with each other on that and apply it back home in Canada.
Yeah, now I understand that, you know, you successfully passed your regimental riding assessment on your first day. And I mean, this is, you know, riding / equestrian at the highest level. Do you just feel completely natural on a horse? Is that sort of like your favorite place to be almost?
Yes, I'm almost a little bit better on a horse than my own 2 feet. I have been riding for about 19 years. So it does feel a little bit natural, but it's, of course, very different every time you sit on a new horse. They're all different. They're much like people. They all have certain opinions and ways they like to do things.
Right. And, of course, so what can we look out for on Monday? This Remembrance gun salute coming up on the 15th here. This is a huge deal because also I believe the Queen's going to be back in attendance after sort of being told to sort of slow down for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, she will be attending the Remembrance service at Westminster Abbey on Sunday. And then come Monday, the entire troop, which is all subsections from A all the way through F, will be deploying all the guns, which are the World War I style 13-pounder howitzers. They will be deploying those guns into Green Park here in London, and we will be doing a royal salute for Remembrance.
Are you nervous?
A little bit, yes. I won't lie to you. But very excited, mostly.
Well, listen, congratulations on your achievement there, Master Bombardier Haley Vanderpost. Really appreciate you joining us here on CP24 Breakfast. Good luck on Monday, and we know you're going to come back with some pretty remarkable experiences to your regiment here in Canada. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, and I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that made this happen, between Lieutenant Colonel Hatfield, who is my now former commanding officer, 56th Field, and all of the commanding officer and the RSM, the King's Troop, and everyone else who put in such a massive effort to make this happen. A big thank you to all of them.
Yeah, well-deserved indeed. It is a team effort indeed. Okay, thanks so much, Haley. Once again, good luck Monday.
Thank you, Nick. Have a great day.
Thanks.